Hey everyone, my name is Bailey from Creatively Innovative. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the intricacies behind setting up a targeted area in Google Ads for your pressure washing business. Sometimes this task can be somewhat complicated, so I'll run through it for you. Let's get started. First off, let's talk about the fundamentals of setting up a targeted area in Google Ads. When you're in Google Ads, you have the option to do a couple of different things. You can include areas and you can exclude areas. When you're inside of these options, it gives you a couple of parameters that you can choose to use. You can exclude or include based upon states, countries, counties, cities, postal codes, congressional districts, and even some more options. So you have lots of tools that you can use in order to narrow down the correct service targeted area. But in order to determine what cities and states, those types of things that we actually need to include or exclude, we need to understand a couple of different things. So the first thing we need to understand is who is our target market and where are they at? When you're looking at an area, let's say, for example, for pressure washing businesses, you need to be targeting areas and neighborhoods and people who actually will be requiring these services. So for example, areas that build up algae, dirt, roof moss, all of those types of things, we need to be targeting areas that actually have a need for that service. Some of these Midwestern states that, I've been living in even, they don't have buildup of algae and those types of things. So there's not much of a need for a lot of these services. So you just need to make sure who's your target market and where are they at so you can find them and target them accordingly. Now, most importantly, we need to understand how Google Ads actually works. Google Ads needs search volume to function. You need people searching for your service, and you need people who understand what your service is to actually get on Google and look for your desired service. In order to get enough search volume, you typically have to have a substantial amount of population within your targeted area. It's not a one-to-one ratio. You're not always going to have great search volume with great population. There's a lot of different variables that go into it. But typically, you can be pretty safe to say that when you have a lot of population, you might have a lot of search volume. Now, we need to keep in mind that the population I was mentioning, it's not a one-to-one ratio. It can also vary by industry. So, for example, if you have a pressure washing service, maybe just a driveway cleaning service, for example, a little bit of a lower ticket service, there might be more people searching for these because there's more people who can afford that service. And in this area, there might be more people that need that service for whatever reason. One thing we need to keep in mind is that the search volume also varies by industry. That's why the population and the search volume are not necessarily a one-to-one ratios, because there's so many variables. So for example, let's say that we have a high ticket service, maybe, in the pressure washing industry, a roof cleaning service, or, in construction, maybe a roof replacement. These higher ticket services are going to be searched less often. There's less people that need the service, and to be quite frank, there's less people that can afford the service. So your search volume is going to be much lower than maybe somebody who is just looking for a siding cleaning or a driveway cleaning, right? So it varies by industry. And another way to break that down is also, not only is it high ticket services that could have lower search volume, it's also services that are really niched down. A good example of this would be, let's say somebody requested a hot tub maintenance or a hot tub repair. The reason the search volume for a hot tub repair would be much lower is because it's so niche. So you got to think about it this way. If somebody owns a house, it's likely they might need a pressure washing service. But if somebody owns a house and a hot tub, that's when they would start needing a hot tub repair. The amount of people that actually own a house and a hot tub is much lower. So the search volume, there's just not as much available. On top of high ticket services and also niche down services having lower potential search volume, you can also see that the same exact service will likely have different search volume across all different areas. So a pressure washing service in Baltimore might and will likely have a different search volume than in San Francisco. It varies by area. So you really need to figure out what is the search volume for your service in your area, and then we can determine how do you want to set up your Google Ads targeting. I'm going to show you a good way to find out how much potential search volume there might be in your desired area for your specific service. So when you go into Google, go into tools and settings, hit the keyword planner. Once you hit the keyword planner, click on discover new keywords. When you're in there, just type in your services. So type in whatever keywords you might be using in your potential campaigns, like pressure washing, roof cleaning, all those good things. Throw them in there, choose your location. So let's say you're in Dallas, just throw in Dallas, put it in there, and then it's going to give you a chart of potential search volume. This way you can use this data that Google's giving you to determine, is this going to be a good area for your service? Are you going to be able to advertise here efficiently? In order to define your area, we're going to have to make sure we follow a couple of rules. So it's a good rule of thumb to kind of start larger right off the bat, and then you can narrow it down later if it's not working out for you. The reason we want to start with a pretty broad locational targeting is that, let's say, for example, you determine that you only want to target neighborhoods A, B, and C. So if you only want to target these three neighborhoods, maybe the first thing that comes to your mind is, well, let's put a target in these neighborhoods. Let's do a little mini radius on these neighborhoods, or even let's just target their county. One reason this is a little bit difficult and can be challenging for a campaign is Google Ads determines how to target an audience based upon IP addresses. This is pretty interesting because these people who are living in neighborhoods A, B, and C, they might not be searching for your service in those areas. So you're targeting IP addresses within neighborhood A, B, and C. Let's say they're searching for pressure washing services while they're at work, more so in the city area. That's why, or at least one of the reasons that we need to have a large radius, is because people who are searching for these services aren't necessarily going to be specifically tied to these little areas. So neighborhood A, B, and C might be your target audience. They might have huge roofs that you want to clean. They might be a great potential client, but you don't know where they're going to be at. You don't know how to target them. So we need a broad area. You might catch John from one of these houses in neighborhood A 15 miles north. So you need to make sure that you're targeting a general area. Otherwise, you might be missing these searches. Not only is it important to have a broad area just because you don't know where they're searching from, but when you shrink down a targeted radius a little bit too much, things can get a little bit dicey. Here's what can happen. So when you shrink down your service area into a smaller spot, a couple of things are going to happen. Your costs might go up and your total volume is going to become a little bit more volatile. Your overall volume is going to go down, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to pull in those leads. You might pull in leads pretty good one day, you might not pull them in well another day. That's because the volume's so low, so it becomes a lot more volatile. It's hard to optimize a campaign when that's happening. You don't have a whole bunch of data. So when you're shrinking these things down, you're really constricting your data to optimize your campaigns on. Now, in what I had mentioned earlier is, your costs might also go up. Well, let's say you're only targeting these three small areas and you get these leads and they're not people who want your service for whatever reason. You might be SOL, right? So you might not be able to close these jobs from the leads that are coming in, and now you're just spending money into the wind. But when you are when you include a general targeted radius, more of a broad area, you have more potential to get a larger distribution of an audience. This larger distribution will allow for more potential customers that might actually give you a call or might actually, want your service. When you get really niched down, things can get complicated because maybe it's somebody who doesn't want to purchase right now. Maybe you're not the ideal fit for them, and can just get a little bit complicated and might be a little bit expensive. Not only will that potentially happen, but when you get into these niche down areas, let's say neighborhood A, like I mentioned, has huge roofs. They look like a great potential client. If you're thinking that, somebody else is too. So you have to keep in mind that, let's say somebody just like yourself might want to target just neighborhood A. Well, shoot, there's going to be 5 to 10 others just like you trying to target neighborhood A. When that happens, everybody's in the same little tiny area with only so much audience, and they're all trying to bid over each other. So we've even seen this specifically quite recently as somebody wanted to target a very small radius. We did it for them to kind of experiment and show them what might potentially happen because they were pretty adamant about doing so. And what happened was, as soon as we got into that small area, our bids almost doubled in order to try to get on that first page because everybody in that area had the same exact mindset. Let's target this neighborhood because it's a great neighborhood. But all it did was increase competitiveness and make leads even more expensive. So even if they're good areas, your ticket might be a little bit bigger, you're going to start spending potentially a lot more. So overall, it's like diversifying a portfolio. You want to have a wide range of targeting so then you can get a wide range of audiences and you have more potential to get leads from all different ranges of the buying cycle. You need to make sure that you're targeting a broad range. All right, now let's talk implementation. We have an understanding of how Google Ads works. We have an understanding of how to properly create a service target area, and we have an understanding of how to make one that will be efficient for our campaigns. So now let's actually get into it and let's create this location targeting. All right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over here and we're going to create a driving radius. We found that starting with a driving radius can actually be the best way to go. And that's because a lot of people actually determine their target audience just based upon drive time. Sometimes we have the people who don't really care where they drive and they'll service anything and everything. But a lot of the times we get feedback pretty commonly from people that they just want to stay within a certain amount of drive time. So let's head over here and let's go through a little bit of an example and let's get it into Google Ads. So what we're going to do is we are going to base a location targeting around a 30-mile, or let's do like a 40-minute drive around the center of Dallas. So we're going to get into Dallas here. Now that we're in Dallas, let's do a 40-minute driving radius. Let this load. Awesome. So now that we have a driving radius, we need to figure out how to get this driving radius into Google Ads. You can't just take a screenshot of it and throw it into Google Ads. We need to do a couple of things to make sure we get it into Google Ads correctly. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to turn this driving radius into a circular radius. We're going to use this program here. We're going to throw in Dallas. Throw in 10-mile radius is fine because we're just going to make some adjustments to make it look like our previous radius. So here we go. Now we have a 10-mile radius around Dallas. Obviously, we know this is too small. So let's kind of match it up here with roughly our radius from before, just over Fort Worth. Okay, great. So now that we have this radius here, we need to use the latitude and longitude that you'll find in this top left to actually get our radius over into Google Ads. So now that we have a circular radius for our targeting, we need to include zip codes, all the zip codes within that circle. The reason for that is Google can use the zip codes to accurately track where your conversion data is coming from, clicks, impressions, all of that type of stuff. It works a whole lot better for you, the advertiser, and for Google. For example, let's say you need to determine if an area is spending a lot of money and not converting at all. Well, since you have it broken down into zip codes, you can determine if that area is a bad area. Not only that, but Google, when you maybe you utilize an automated strategy, Google can use that zip code data to try to help optimize where it wants to be showing those ads more often. So that's why we use those zip codes within a radius, and we found that to be the best. Great. So now we're in a program that will allow us to get all the zip codes in a specific radius. We're going to throw in our latitude and longitude from before. Then we are going to throw in our mileage, 33.6. Draw that radius. Once we draw that radius, we're going to toggle a new line segment. Then we're going to copy our zip codes to our clipboard. Now we have everything we need to include our targeted locations. We have a radius and we have all of the zip codes within the radius. The final step is to throw all this information into Google Ads, and here's how we do it. Go over to the locations in your campaign. We need to go to radius. We have our latitude and longitude from before. Throw that in there. We know our mileage is 33.6. Now we need to target that. So as you can see, we have our radius based upon our drive time from earlier. Now that we have this radius, let's go over and add in those zip codes. So we need to add locations into bulk. Then we need to grab our zip codes. So we got those here. We're going to put them in this box. Once we do that, you want to make sure you do United States. Otherwise, you might get somewhere crazy. Then you search. Once that searches, you'll click target all. And as you can see, we have a radius and all of the zip codes. Now, you might have remembered from earlier, we talked about excluding locations. This is also very important because you need to make sure that these searches are actually coming from your desired area. First thing we want to do is, so we'll go over to excluded. Once we get into excluded, we need to add all of the United States. We just copy and paste list from online. Then you need to remove the state that you are actually targeting currently, which is Texas. So let's remove Texas. Again, you need to make sure this says United States so you don't get somewhere else. You'll target it, exclude all. As you can see, we're starting to put together a nice little radius here. We have our excluded states and we have our included area, but now we need to fine tune it a little bit by excluding those other parameters, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video. We're going to show all areas. Now you can start seeing there are these gray areas that start popping up. Congressional districts are a large area, so we can exclude those first. So you can see this gray area is about to pull up right here. We need to exclude this. And then we need to exclude this. And we'll go through and exclude all of these, all of these congressional districts. Okay, so now that we have all of our congressional districts excluded, let me show you what this looks like. All right, we have our included radius and our excluded areas in Google Ads. So that's it for today. I hope this deep dive into setting up a targeted area in Google Ads was helpful. Remember, while it might seem complicated, it's a crucial step in setting up your Google Ads campaigns for success. Thanks for tuning in. As always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe for more tips and tricks. See you in the next one.